Let me know where you are in the world. You're all very quiet today. You're not normally so quiet. What's going on? Tell me. I'll tell you a little bit about me while you're all waking up, and hopefully in the process of that, I will get past this stage of being really sleepy and come round a bit so we can have this session together with me awake and you awake. Or maybe you're not awake. Maybe you're a little bit sleepy today, and that's okay too, because I know sometimes people turn up to these sessions and it's not a normal awake time. It's a sleeping time, and that's fine too. We've got to do what we do, don't we? So I have people who turn up to these and it's like midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, and it does seem to help them. I think that's worth thinking about, is that we kind of end up where we're meant to be, I think, in life. So people who end up here at 1 o'clock in the morning, meant to be here, aren't they? Like, you're meant to be here. Are you awake yet? That's the question. Are you really here? Am I really here? So I'll tell you a little bit about me. My name's Clare Downham. I'm known as the Queen of Calm. I actually do feel quite calm today. I think that's because I'm sleepy. Excuse me, the yawning will pass soon. I know it will, because I've just woken up, so I'm a bit yawny. After those of you who have only just arrived, that's because I've woken up very, very early, like at 3 o'clock, and then got washed, did some exercise, got washed and dressed, took my fiance to the train station, then went back to bed because I just thought, I'm not going to be able to do. I've got a client quite late on today, and I'm not going to be awake for that person if I don't get a bit more sleep. So I did. So let me know where in the world you are. Let me know what you're up to. So this title I have of the Queen of Calm was given to me. Somebody just said it once, and I just went with it because I quite liked it. Now, what's great to know about that title is that I do not profess to be calm all the time. I'm not some elusive being. It's just like sitting cross-legged, not in life and managing to stay calm all the time. I am in the thick of life, and life happens, and I have my moments when I'm not calm. I have my moments when I'm angry, when I'm upset, when I'm feeling anxious. I have all this. Thank you for the love. That's nice. I have all the human feels all the time. But I don't think any of them are a problem. And that's because I've learnt something called the 3 principles, which is what I am teaching you. So the title today, understanding the 3 principles to awaken your creative spark. Because in understanding the 3 principles, we really can awaken our creative spark. So when we talk about the 3 principles, we're exploring our psychology and our spiritual nature, our infinite potential. Now, I heard a really great podcast the other day, and the man was talking about how he had been he'd been around this understanding when it was first sort of uncovered in 1973. And he'd really enjoyed the spiritual aspects of it, and he'd got really into, he'd had his big awakening experience. He'd had this week or so of being totally at peace and absolutely loved it. And then the conversation started to move more to psychology, and he didn't think he had any problems with his psychology. He thought his thinking was perfectly fine. So he didn't really like the psychological exploration, and he refused to engage with it. And then he moved away from Sydney Banks anyway, and he physically moved away, but also kind of emotionally, or he just moved away from him in general because he didn't like the way the conversation was going. He didn't like the conversations about psychology. He wanted to stay in the spiritual. Now, the spiritual is all very well, and I really do look to that for this sense of the essence of who we are, the consciousness, the aliveness, the infinite potential that we are, which is, the consciousness and mind of the 3 principles. But we cannot get away from how thought creates our experience, how we are feeling our thinking, how it's our thinking that creates this separate reality, this illusion that we live in. So I spend a lot of time pointing people to the fact that they are infinite, that they have infinite potential. But we cannot avoid that we are human beings having a psychological experience too. We can't forget about our thinking. Much as it would probably be super helpful to do so, we can't. So that's what's so holistic about the three principle exploration, as opposed to some other things that might be very focused on the spiritual, or some other things that spend a lot of time poking around in the psychological. And really, I've had a big insight about this recently in seeing that it is the combination of the two that is most powerful. The understanding of the spiritual nature of us, of the infinite potential of us, alongside understanding that we are psychological beings, that we are psychology. We can't avoid, not that we are our psychology, but our psychology is playing a part in how our human experience is created. I'm just finishing off making my cup of tea, because otherwise, today I don't normally have a lot of caffeine because it does have a tendency to give me a bit of a headache, but today, headache will have to stay because I'm having some caffeine so I can get through the day. After this, I've got to go into Leeds to a networking meeting, and I want to be nice and awake for that. So I'm dribbling tea everywhere now. Bear with. So let me know who's there today. You're very quiet. I can see quite a few more people have just come in. And let me know if you are new to me, new to listening to my content, and if you're new to the three principles, or if you've heard of it before. I love to see who's here in terms of that. It's always good to have other three principles people on board, because hopefully they will bring something to the table to help everybody else here. People who understand the three principles, but also I absolutely love sharing this understanding with new people. So my mission really is to spread this understanding as far as I possibly can and as wide as I possibly can to as many people as I possibly can, because the transformation I've experienced through seeing this, and the transformation I now see in many of my clients, is truly unbelievable, really, in many cases, when people can go from experiencing some difficult part of their life in a really quite difficult way that, can end up making them not want to get out of bed in the morning, to being able to literally brush it aside and get on with their day is phenomenal. Oh, hello, Eleanor. Thank you for saying hello, Ellen. I thought there was nobody talking to me today, and there you are saying hello. Thank you so much. So a recent client I've worked with, hi Natasha, lovely to see you. And I love curiosity. Very nice, very nice. Yeah, I think you've been before, haven't you, Eleanor? But you're newish. I like newish. Yeah, there's a beautiful journey ahead of you if you're newish or new completely. So a recent client of mine is going through a difficult process at work. She's had some difficulties with time off because of her mental health, and her worker very kindly paid for her to work with me, which is wonderful. And she's just gone from experiencing things in one way to experiencing things in a very different way. So the three principles are thought, mind, and consciousness. So thought is how we really talk about our psychology, which is not who we are. Our thinking is not us. We're going to talk about that quite a lot today. Mind is this universal intelligence, universal energy, whatever you want to call it, really. And consciousness is is how we experience life. What is around us isn't necessarily in our consciousness, is it? Have you ever... And my ex-husband actually had this weird level of consciousness where I could put something across the top of the steps or the bottom of the steps, and he could step over that thing and get himself down or up the steps without tripping over it. However, they didn't pick it up and take it down or bring it upstairs. So our consciousness, what we're aware of, the consciousness is that power that brings things into our awareness. And the exciting news is, Eleanor, that the track that I've been talking about for weeks has now been released today. So if you follow me, new tracks, there's about 4 new tracks gone on today, because I did finally email them and said, you're approving all my recent tracks, but you're not approving the ones that I submitted a month ago. So finally there's a track called What Are the 3 Principles and Why Do They Bring Ease? That is now released. So please go and have a look at that track, because that will give you a little bit more of a background to the 3 principles and is a really good grounding in this understanding. In addition to that, I do have 2 courses, Calm, Balance and Clarity with Ease, and Revealing Your Potential with the 3 principles. And the new course is still in my head, but it will be out next month. This month we've been exploring revealing our potential, and next month we're going to explore productivity. So we're going to look at all things to do with procrastination, motivation, getting things done, achieving what we want to achieve in life, whatever that is. Doesn't really matter what it is, but noticing how we get in our way. So this month there's been a general focus on getting out of our own way and understanding what the interference might be with that. And next month more specifically around productivity. So I'm here to share the 3 principles. I do that in 3 to 5 live sessions a week. It really depends on what the rest of my schedule is doing and whether I'm travelling, because I am at home today, but yesterday I was in Trevor the motorhome and the day before. So I'm sometimes here and sometimes in Trevor. And when I'm in Trevor, sometimes we're travelling and it's a little bit difficult to get online. So the 3 principles is life-changing. I want to share it as broadly as I can. And so if you do find this content helpful, if there's anything here that you just think, wow, that's really helped me today, then if you can support me on that mission with a donation, I am, of course, super, super grateful always for those donations. So, thank you so much if you're able to do that. It does mean a lot, and it does help me. It does support me in sharing this understanding, which has changed. Well, it's changed my life, and it's changing lots of other people's lives too. Thousands of people, well, millions probably, eventually, when it spreads further. Because my aim is to have everybody kind of know about it and get curious about it. And that's why I loved, Natasha, when you came in and said, you're so curious to be here. Brilliant. So, let's get started with the topic at hand. And I'm going to start with a little story. I always like to put some stories in about me and my journey with things, because I think that's the stuff I've seen. It's easiest for me to talk about things that I've seen myself and I've seen in my own life, in terms of helping you to understand it. So those of you just, if anybody's got my teeth, that'd be lovely. Maybe I need a cup of tea. Anybody who doesn't know, I was a primary school head teacher here in the UK until March 2015, when I burnt out and was very unwell, didn't work for a year. Now, I never, right up until probably way past that point, it was probably a while into running my own business, which is what I did after I resigned, before I saw myself as creative at all. I think I got the memo that creativity meant art or dancing or singing or things that people would call the creative arts, and that wasn't really my thing. I was Mrs. Practical, solve problems, plan things, study hard. I didn't see myself at all as creative, which I'm smiling at now because it's a ludicrous idea. I mean, literally, as a human being, you can't go a day without being creative because life demands it, doesn't it? But I really did think, but it kind of spread that into, so I would have said writing was creative, and I really didn't think I could write. I didn't think I could put ideas together on paper. I really had a block there. I'd always done subjects like maths, physics, chemistry, those kind of sciencey subjects until my second attempt at university. So my first attempt was an engineering degree, which went badly, to say the least. I did 2 terms and then went, what am I doing? I don't want to do engineering. And the second time I tried to do a degree, I was successful, just about. And I did a degree that involved a lot of reading and writing. And I struggled. I really struggled. Because it turned out, I found out about 10 years later, that I have a condition that's very like dyslexia, which means that reading and writing is quite difficult for me. And actually, I had to work really, I always had to work hard at school. I always felt like I had to work hard. And so I didn't endeavour to even involve myself in that element of creativity around writing, because so I just thought I wasn't creative. If somebody had said in a room full of people, put your hand up if you think you're creative, I would have just no way put my hand up. I would have expected all the artists and writers and people like that to put their hand up. Can anybody else relate to that story? Because at some point I realised I wasn't good at art. Like, I'm still not good at art. I'm sure if I invested some time I could become good at art, but I am not. I've never had the interest or the inclination to do anything arty. It's interesting actually, because my daughter is super arty. She is really creative. She's about to teach herself crocheting, which she's probably going to do off a video, because that's how we learn things these days, isn't it? From a video. So I went through life thinking I wasn't creative, and I'd really love to know from anybody here who's had that kind of sense of themselves as not being creative, not being creative. So that was how I went through life, and until I started my own business, and I started to see it differently then, because I started to see that I was solving problems. I was making things for social media. I was doing a lot of creative things, and actually creativity to me now feels like something very, very different. It feels like just anything where we have to work things out, where we have to find solutions, where we have to, even that we have to plan things. So I'm the planner in our house. Anybody else a planner? So in next month, in July, we're going to walk the Cleveland Way, or a big chunk of it. Probably not going to do it all, because it might be a bit much, that. So that's a walk that goes from Helmsley in North Yorkshire. It goes sort of through North Yorkshire, goes up to the coast, up near, above Whitby somewhere. I think maybe around Robin Hood's Bay, and then you walk down, maybe a bit higher than that actually. Then you walk down the coast. The second part is a coastal path, and we did a chunk of it a few weeks ago. We did a bit from Scarborough to Filey, and then we got the bus back to the motorhome. So we have done a chunk of it before, but we thought we'd like to do a bit more of it, because it's absolutely beautiful countryside and we absolutely love walking. And I've already started, I've got a plan, because we're going to have to walk, and then we'll have to find a bus back to where we started each day, and then we'll move them at home a bit more, and then we'll do the same again. So there's a lot of kind of logistics to think about and planning to do. But that is creative. And I think for me now, creative is anything where we're either putting something together in a way that's new to us, or anything that comes fresh and new. So when I think about my content on here right now, talking to you, and all my other content that's on here, and there is a lot of it, so please do go and follow me if you haven't before, that's all creative. It's almost seeing that it's natural for us to be creative. We're thinking about the 3 principles. That's the universal intelligence piece, isn't it? And so that's probably one of the other words I would sometimes use to speak to universal intelligence. Creativity. That which is waiting to emerge from us. That which is always ready to emerge. All we need to really do is look in a direction, and those answers will come. Last month we explored problem solving and decision making. So if you've got any stuff going on around that, there's loads of tracks about that now on here. And that to me is all creative when we allow it to be. Now, what can often happen, even when... So I've worked with artists before around this understanding. I've had clients who've been artists. And quite often when they're blocked in some way, it's because they're up in the intellect, they're in the psychology, and they're in their thinking, and their inspiration, their creativity doesn't come from there. It doesn't come from there. So if you are looking for a solution to something and you would like something fresh, new and creative, it isn't going to come from trawling through your old thinking, because that's what your psychology is. It's just all the old stuff. It's stuff you've already thought before. It's stuff that is rooted in somebody else's thinking, because it's what you interpreted or misinterpreted from what other people did and said around you when you were a child. So the answer to it is not there. So what I'm pointing to here is that creativity is a natural state for us as human beings, and it's because we're part of nature too. Like, I know I'm sat in a brick box right now, and often I'm sat in a metal box, but I do like to be in nature when I can, and I see nature's creativity. Maybe you do too, all the time. Even just if you ever see a bird's nest that's fallen out of a tree or something, it's absolutely amazing to see how that nest has been woven together. And that has to be fresh and new, doesn't it? Because even if that bird built a nest last year, and I understand some of the small birds in this country live for like a decade or so. I never even knew that. I never thought they would live that long, but they do. So if you imagine that bird, every twig they pick up is a different twig to the twigs they picked up last year. So every twig they add to the nest has got to be unique and new and a different shape, and it's going to fit together differently to the other twigs in the nest, different to last year. So every piece of that nest is creativity at work. It's being created, isn't it? It's being brought into life. How amazing is that? So creativity is working through us all the time. So I've talked a little bit there about the amazing power of creativity, the amazing capacity we have for creativity. But that energy can also be misused. Because how good are we at creating a nightmare for ourselves? Like, I don't mean that we deliberately create horrible things for ourselves. I don't mean it like that. But our psychology, when we're in the thick of it, has this capacity. We have this capacity to create from there. And when we create from there, we bring about perhaps not the most helpful outcomes for ourselves. And some terrible feelings. And that's another element of creation that it's useful to know about, is that when we think terrible thoughts, when we zoom off into the future, or we dwell in the past, when we go over and over and over the same kind of negative thinking again and again and again, we have an experience of what that thinking creates in our bodies. Uncomfortable feelings. Now it's not a particularly nice element of creativity. However, it's super helpful to know that it's going on. That when you are feeling terrible, that you are feeling the creative energy of your thinking. It might be your anxious thinking, it might be your worried thinking, it might be your low mood thinking, it might be you dwelling in the past and thinking about things you did wrong, it might be guilty thinking, it might be the thinking of shame. And you will feel all of those in your body because they are brought to life by this creative energy. And so what's really helpful there is to see that it really is how much energy we give those thoughts. And right now I'm kind of having my own moment with this, like it's coming to alive in me even more, is that when we have a thought, it's how much of that creative energy we give that thought that causes us to feel terrible, feel those uncomfortable feelings. So we can have sad thoughts, we can have unpleasant thoughts. Now, I know that during every day, you will at some point have an unpleasant thought. I know, a sad thought or a negative, let's call it a negative thought. I don't really know that thoughts are negative and positive, but you'll have a thought that's not particularly pleasant and you'll just let it pass. I know, let me know in the comments if you've done that. I know you have. I know we've all done it. At some point we've all done it, haven't we? We've all noticed a negative thought and let it pass. And we've also all done the opposite. We've all noticed a negative thought, grabbed tight hold of it, like the strings on a kite, and gone off on its crazy journey. And we felt that. We felt that. So I remember the first time I really noticed this kind of sense of, or really kind of acknowledged this idea that we don't control what appears in our heads. That is a really useful thing to know, because I think there are an awful lot of tools and techniques, and really here we are not looking at any tools and techniques, and we're not looking at any strategies, and we're not poking around in the past. We are understanding how it works. This is subtractive psychology. It's descriptive, not prescriptive. So it's a description of how life works. So many things that we come across to try and feel better, which is why we're here, isn't it? Like, you wouldn't be here if you didn't want to feel better. They're all about trying to change our thinking. You can't do that. Forget it. Forget trying to change your thinking deliberately. Insightfully, yes, insightfully we see something new and we kind of go, oh no, I can let that thinking go. I don't have to think like that anymore. But the arrival of a thought in your head is nobody's business. It's not yours, it's not mine. It's God's business, that. It's nothing to do with you. It's what appears is what appears. That's it. That's all you need to know. Now, what's helpful about that is that we can relate to our thoughts differently, and we can see that we don't have to fall for them hook, line and sinker every time. The first time I really saw this was really interesting. Now, please just be aware that this is just a story of thought, nothing else. But I was out for a walk once with my fiance, and we were in Bournemouth, and we went out to this place called Harry Rocks. Now, it's one of these sort of cliff edge type places where there's no fences or anything, so there's and it is a cliff, it's a sheer drop down to the sea. And I remember standing there right near the edge, and I don't know, I don't really like being really near the edge. I get a bit wobbly and I kind of think, oh, I could fall. But that wasn't the thought that came to mind. The thought that came to mind then was, oh God, I wonder if people jump off here. And like in the past, I would have like berated myself for that thought. I was like, you can't think like that. What are you thinking like that for? That's horrible. It's a horrible thought to have. But I had a totally different reaction to it, because I'd started to see that thoughts were not mine to control, and the randomness of things that come into my head is just like, well, it's like a dream, isn't it? Like in a dream, like the other night I had this really vivid dream that I went to work back at the school that I was at before I became a head teacher the first time myself. And I went in as the head teacher. And the two people who I'd worked alongside, or the woman I'd worked alongside and the woman who'd taken my job when I left as assistant head, they ended up working for me again. It was like really, really, really surreal and really vivid. Now, I did wake up like a bit, oh, that was a bit strange. Like, why am I dreaming about going back to be a head teacher again? I don't want to be a head teacher again. I do sometimes miss school and the life that gave me, but I don't miss the holidays, which is really strange. If there's any teachers here, you can probably relate to that. You'd be like, what do you mean you don't miss the holidays? They're like our lifeblood, but I don't miss them at all. It's really strange. It doesn't bother me not having 13 weeks holiday a year. Life's a holiday now, but we can't control that. So I couldn't control the thought that came about the cliff. Do people jump off here? And I saw that in the moment, and I said to Bruce, I said, God, I've just had this really weird thought, but I can just see that it's not to do with me. That's creative energy too. That just randomly. But that's a bit that we don't get to control. Bless you, Eleanor. A year. I can imagine what happened. It's just, it's a secondary. I was primary, Eleanor. I don't think I could have done secondary at all. Not in a million years. At least the children were nice when I was in primary, bless them. Not that young people are not nice too, but they were a little bit trickier, aren't they? My main issue was the teachers, the parents, the governors, in that order, because obviously I was a head teacher, so I had all those people to manage. It was the adults, not the children. Primary, probably different in secondary, especially if you're a teacher. Very different story. Yeah, just a different thing to think. Different things to think about than if we're in secondary against primary. So that, that seeing that's a creative force as well, and that isn't ours to control, is so cool. Because admit it here, folks, because this is a safe space. If you have spent a lot of time trying to control your thinking, because I have a lot of time, it became like a part-time job for me at one point, trying to control my thinking. A really big part-time job, not helpful at all. I was spending so much time doing it that it became silly, really, to be fair. Doing affirmations and gratitude journals and meditation and I'm not saying anything against any of those things if you enjoy them, but if it's with an aim of manipulating your thinking, there is something that, in understanding, what happens is, as we spend less time in our psychology, as we spend less time thinking about our thinking, the thinking naturally moves on. It's got an ability to do that. We don't have to be involved. So creativity is there all the time. So when we sort of talk about awakening it, it's quite funny, really, because you can't put it to sleep. Now, it's either up there in your psychology, creating a really horrible experience for you, that energy, that creative energy. It's almost like it's, how they say that there's, energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only change from one form to another. Was that Einstein? I feel like E = mc squared is in there somewhere. I feel like that is to do with Einstein and what he said about energy. It cannot be created, it cannot be destroyed, it can only be changed from one form to another. Creativity is the same. Creative energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be changed from one form to another. So how is that helpful? It is seeing that where you direct your creative energy is going to create your experience of life. And if you would like to experience more of that, so I would say things like intuition is creative energy. That gut instinct when you just know really calmly, you just feel that kind of, I know what to do now. That's creative energy. So what I see here is back to this there's been an equation that we've been exploring all month, and that is performance equals potential take away interference, where interference is our thinking, really, that aspect of our creative energy. I'm just seeing that I have got 26 minutes. My computer's just moaning about how much power I've got left, but I think we're going to be okay for the next few minutes. So this creative energy can be used or abused, really. If we're spending a lot of time in our psychology, in our thinking, in the heaviness that brings, in the uncomfortable feelings that brings, then we will, of course, have a certain experience of life. And if we're in a place of calm, then we will have a different experience of life. Now, that is not a directive to make yourself calm. That's not what I'm pointing to at all. That's not what it is. But it is more about knowing when you're not. Knowing when your creative energy is going off in a direction that may not be helpful. So that would be brought to our awareness by how we're feeling. So when you're feeling anxious, when you're feeling stressed out, when you're feeling upset, when you're feeling down, that's a warning from your system to let you know that your state of mind is not in a good place. That the direction in which your creative energy is going is into your psychology, as opposed to your spiritual nature, as opposed to your infinite potential, as opposed to intuition, as opposed to peace, love, wisdom. Because realistically, all we are as human beings is peace, love and wisdom, and the capacity to create the illusion that we are not. And with that equation, performance equals potential minus interference, that's what we're pointing to. We can either be in the interference, so our creative energy can be in the interference, creating unpleasant feelings in our body, or it can be in the space, in the infinite potential, bringing about solutions to our problems, clarity, new ideas, etc. And life as a human being is like this. That's what it does. It goes up and down. That's the nature of life. The nature of life is this up and down thing. It's supposed to be like that. So sometimes your energy, your where your focus is and your energy will be up in your head, and you'll probably feel down here somewhere, and then sometimes it will be up here and you'll feel different. And so your levels of consciousness are going to go up and down like this. Your creative energy is going to be one place or another. And as a human being, that's perfectly fine. It's perfectly normal. But when you start to see that where you direct your attention, where your creative energy is pointing, is invested, is how you're going to feel life, what life's going to feel like to you, then you start to see it. So an example of that is, for example, if you're upset with somebody, which tends to be my thing, I laugh there because generally I'm right and other people are wrong. I'm being sarcastic now, by the way. And when other people are wrong and I'm right, and it happens a lot because so many people don't live their life Clare's way, then I tend to get a little bit wound up and upset. And what I used to think was, and this brought about a lot of controlling behaviour, was that other people needed to just sort themselves out and be better, and then I could feel okay. That was the plan. Please stop being a problem in my life, person, whoever you are, and then I can feel better. And there's one person in my life who is my fiance's ex. They have a child. There's communication that has to happen between us and her. And she often doesn't like what we've done on a Sunday and a Saturday when we've had him once a fortnight, and she sends rude messages about it, or she used to. She does. She doesn't. She does not do that very politely, shall we say. I am going to have to get some power. Just bear with me a minute. It looked like I had absolutely loads of power. You see, I'm plugging myself in to energy. Different kind of energy, though. Here we go. Because it is bipping at me now and getting very upset with me about the power. So we're going to have to give it some juice. Everything needs juice today. It's probably because I've plugged my phone in to charge off my laptop. So probably my laptop now is running out of battery because my phone's charging from it. So we're all up and running again now. So where was I going with that? So we can start to see this really simple thing happening. Wherever your creative energy is being directed is what you're going to feel. And if your creative energy is directed into your psychology, then it generally means you're going to feel rubbish. It's just like, now you might feel super happy because you've got happy thinking, but most of the time when we're up there, we're not in the present moment, we're in the past, we're in the future, we're in the thoughts about ourselves, thoughts about other people, most of them not pleasant, and we don't feel so good. And understanding that that's happening is really helpful, and it works like this, and some of you have probably seen me hit myself with a ruler before, but if you haven't, you're in for a great fun time now. So it's like if I'm sitting here saying I've got a headache won't go away, tried everything, I've been sniffing lavender oil, and I've been getting loads of sleep, and I've tried not drinking caffeine, not today though, and I've tried drinking lots of water. I've done all these things, and I can't get rid of this headache. And come on, somebody tell me what I need to do about my headache. I don't know what to do. What should I do about my headache? Rippon, you're saying hello. Tell me what to do about the headache. I mean, somebody is going to tell me to stop hitting myself on the head with a ruler, and then my headache is going to go away. Boom. That's it. That's all I had to do. Very little, isn't it? It's very little. I've stopped. Now, what happens when we realise that we are feeling our thinking, and that we start to become aware there are certain types of thinking that when we get caught up in them, they feel absolutely dreadful. We start to catch them earlier. That's just what happens automatically. Now, staying in this conversation in the 3 principles is super helpful, because it starts to raise our awareness. We start to go, oh yeah, I remember what Claire said about that. I don't have to think that. I can just move away from that. I don't have to think that way. And I know that you are familiar, all of you, with the trains of thought that take you into an uncomfortable feeling. We all have certain things that when we do them, what a mind does when it's upset. Think about, what does your mind do when it's upset? My mind rants and has me feel that other people are all stupid. And I can laugh about it because I know that's just my thinking. And I had a really funny conversation with my mum the other day. Just a very light conversation. Not, oh my God, this thing in the past. It wasn't that. I just was talking about being right all the time, and I was laughing. And I looked at her and she started to laugh, and I said, yeah, and you know where I learnt it from, don't you? She said, yes, me. Because she too likes to be right, or thinks she's right, actually. Rippon, I have got a track about anger, a free one, so definitely look that up. So you don't, by stopping trying to control it, Rippon, my darling, that's the first thing. Anger is something I work with a lot with my clients. So I'll tell you a little story about that in relation to this woman, my fiance's ex, S, we'll just call her S. She often sends these very rude messages on a Sunday night, and I would react to them. So, we're talking about anger, Ripon, we're talking about a reaction, aren't we? It's like we're there before we even know it. And that reaction for me was like every other week on a Sunday night, the same pattern. We'd think we'd had a lovely weekend, but apparently we'd have done or said something wrong. And Ethan would go home, tell his mum, and then she would message us. And I would message back like this, like, just don't tell me how to live my life. Don't tell me what to do. It's none of your business. Da 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 da. Yeah. Angry does equal a bad reaction, and it's a reaction rather than a response. So what we're looking at here is definitely growing our response ability. We put a little hyphen in the middle, response ability. Now, I remember, so I would react from that place, because in that moment I'm in an outside-in misunderstanding, Ripon. That feeling looks like it's coming from her, and it looks like, when we're feeling angry, it looks like the only way to feel not angry is for the other person to stop doing that thing that they're doing. So we shout, we send rude messages, we react, like, stop it, like, just stop it, and then I can feel better. That's what we do, don't we? And it sounds like you're familiar with that pattern, Ripon. And then afterwards we end up feeling really bad, don't we? Because we, and the guilt comes in, and then we feel worse about ourselves. That doesn't help, but we could talk about that at great length. So I remember one night she did the usual, and this is the first time I saw that my state of mind was at play, that my creative energy had gone into this horrible story about her and what she needed to stop doing for me to be okay. I read the message and I felt the initial reaction. So the initial reaction, Ripon, is powerful, because that's your stoplight, or it's at least an amber light. It's letting you know that you're starting to get caught up in your own psychology. And it also is telling you invariably that you are in an outside-in misunderstanding. You put those two things together, you get a mess, you get reaction. I'm believing my psychology, and I think the other person's making me feel something. Two misunderstandings. This is not true, and your feelings don't come from the outside world. So immediately you are in a mess, because you're in two misunderstandings at once. And, really, I've not really said it like that before, but you're in two misunderstandings. If you're believing you're thinking when you're angry, and you think that angry feeling is coming from the other person, you're in two massive misunderstandings, and your creative energy is involved in all of that, and it's creating something not very helpful. Interestingly, react and create have got nearly the same letters, haven't they? Interesting, just spotted that. So that moment, that particular evening, the message came in, the initial feeling comes up. That's the amber warning light. Now, normally I ignored the amber warning light, went to red and sent a rude message back. This particular day, I saw it in the moment. I literally heard a voice in my head that said, you are not in a fit state to deal with this right now. You're not in a fit state to reply. Put your phone down. And I did. I heard it. And I put it down, and I moved away, and I think we were cooking our evening meal, left my phone in the kitchen, went and ate, watched a bit of rubbish on the telly, looked at it later and just went, it's not even, there's nothing there. There's just somebody who's upset sending us an upset message. There's nothing to reply to. I don't need to defend myself. We're not going to change what we do with the child when he's here. We're not going to change our way of life for her. There's nothing to do. And I just walked away from it. And I didn't need to reply. But I had to see where the suffering was coming from. Suffering's coming from us. It's not coming from out there. So Ripon, in response to that, there's no such thing as a negative person. There's our perceptions of people. But how we feel about people is coming from us, not them. There is no outside-in creation. It's all inside out. Now, Ripon, that's the kind of thing I love to help people with. So, and this is to everybody else, because a lot of people have come in while I've been chatting away, please do say hello and let me know where you are in the comments. And if you've come in fairly recently, my name's Clare, I'm the Queen of Calm, and today we've been talking about creativity, and we've been talking about all of it from a 3 principles perspective. If you have found this interesting or helpful, or even have just gone, what is this crazy woman on about? There's something here, it's different to what I've heard before, because it will be different to what you've heard before in many cases. So if you would like to find out more, please do follow me. Please do check out the link in my bio. There's absolutely loads of information on there. I'm thinking about launching like a weekly Zoom where people can just come in and get some help for like tuppence halfpenny. Tuppence halfpenny, that's a proper Yorkshire phrase. Proper old English phrase. I was born in the year of decimalisation, so I don't know anything much about tuppence halfpenny. Although we did have halfpennies when I was a kid. I've still got some somewhere. Little tiny weeny things. Miracle people prices were something and a half pence. Who remembers that? Some people must remember that. So please do head over to my bio, follow me. There are a couple of courses there. Ripon, you may find these 2 courses helpful just in looking further in this direction. So calm, balance and clarity with ease, and revealing your full potential with the 3 principles. I know quite a lot of people have taken these courses and found them really helpful. The 3 principles is something very different. I now, Ripon, do have a track called What are the 3 principles and how do they bring more ease to life? That has now been approved today. I had the email today, so I was really pleased because I have been chasing that one up a little bit and it seems to have got stuck in the system, but they have had some technical issues. They've been moving everything over. You probably haven't even noticed because you're at the other end of it, but from the back end they've been moving everything across to a new system, and that's taken a little bit of time. So that's what's been happening. But it's now all moved across and all happy again. So I will be live again on Friday. I'm not doing tomorrow because there's too much going on tomorrow. Friday at 1:11 p.m. BST, because I'm in the UK. The 3 principles way to navigate change with ease. So that's the one for Friday, and there will be some. I'll be booking some more in for next week. I need to look at my diary and see where they're going to fit. I'm trying lots of different times at the moment. If you're in the UK, you'll be able to catch me at all sorts of different times. If you're not in the UK, then there will be times that suit you and times that don't. If you found this at all helpful, if you've had a little insight, if you've seen something new, if you feel keen to explore, then I'm always super grateful for the support you can give through donations. They support me and they do support Insight Timer. I am very passionate, as you probably gathered, about this 3 principles understanding. I do think it's got the potential to change not just our experience, but it has the potential to change the world. And so if you can make donations, they do support me in keeping going on here and bringing this understanding to as many people as possible. It is truly life-changing. And if you've enjoyed this, please follow me. Please go to the link in my bio. There's freebies and stuff there for you to have a look at. And there's other little things where you can get to know me. There's also a video there that tells you a little bit more about me and my story. And stay in the conversation. If you've enjoyed listening to me and my sense of humour and my, did you notice the yawning did stop, didn't it, eventually? I was so tired this morning when I came on. Please do follow me, learn from me, learn the 3 principles from me. If, however, you think I'm really annoying, that's fine, because we've all got a different way of looking at the world, haven't we? And that's good. But please learn about the 3 principles. Find a 3 principles teacher. At the moment, I'm hoping to get Insight Timer to add the 3 principles as a modality on here, so that we can so I can actually, when I load something up, I want to be able to click on 3 principles as the thing. I often say non-duality, but I would say I speak to the psychological and the human as much as the kind of non-duality piece. So it ends up being, the 3 principles is a bit more holistic than that. So it's got a lot more to it. I do speak about the psychological as well as the spiritual. It's a lovely combination of the two, really, a lovely merging of the two to help us to understand ourselves better. And that's all we need, really. We don't need to do anything about fixing ourselves. We are naturally able to reset when we don't get involved. We don't have to control anger, Ripon. We don't have to handle negative people. We don't have to do any of that. There's a system inside us that's built for that. So please keep looking in this direction. Please keep listening to content like this. There's loads of great teachers, and if you would like a conversation, then hop over to the link in my bio and please do reach out to me. There's now a place to message me on Telegram, because I do get messages on the app, but they're a bit tricky. So if you've got any questions, you can talk to me there too. So take care, everyone. Lots of love. Thank you so much for being here. Anybody who is able to make a donation to support me in spreading this word, this understanding, then I'll be truly grateful. So lots of love. Take care, and I hope I meet some of you again soon. You will be then a repeat offender, because that's what we're calling people who come back. Oh, that's a great question, Ripon. Witting the Devil by Napoleon Hill, yeah. I don't believe in the devil, so that would be a tricky one for me to answer. I would say that how I would say that is that you are God, universal energy, the energy that powers everything, the energy that has your heart beating and your stomach digesting and your lungs breathing without you needing to do anything. The energy that knows that, what flowers, it's clover at the moment in my garden, the dandelions came and went, the daffodils came and went, the clover's now here, the poppies are out, absolutely love poppies, they're so beautiful. All of that's happening through this amazing power. And then there's our psychology. And like you're not part of the psychology, you're part of this energy of life, Ripon. You are the aliveness, you are the freedom, you are peace, love and wisdom, and the capacity to create the illusion that you are not. That's a Jack Pransky quote, one of my favourite quotes from this understanding. And I guess where somebody might point to the devil is our thinking. I'm not saying our thinking's the devil, but I guess that's maybe what I don't know what Napoleon Hill meant. He's long gone, isn't he? I can't even ask him. But I haven't read the book Ripon, but my sense of God is that you are that. You are that energy. It's energy. It's aliveness. It's nature. It's our true nature. So carry that with you for the day, folks. That will do you well and create an amazing day for you, I hope. So lots of love. Take care, and please do reach out to me if you want to talk further. Lots of love.